What's that conversation with those guys of getting them to understand that all that training, that's on the back burner now. We got to focus on performing now.
Yeah. And it's probably one of the biggest challenges that I have as a mental performance coach, especially with young guys, is because there's so much emphasis on the mechanical, the way their body moves, right? The execution of pitches now with data and things like that. So getting them into the mindset of, hey, I've got to let that go, right? And go compete when it comes. So like a couple of things come to mind with that, right? Like the training that I'm doing with them in the preseason is sort of to get them ready for the in season. So it's controlling the controllable stuff, right? Like understanding, having a really, really well-defined awareness of what you can and can't control, right? Because once you get on that field, once that ball leaves your hand or once that ball leaves, the barrel of your bat, there's really not that much you could do about it, right? So let's like really narrow down the focus to what are we doing pitch to pitch, right? And then building those like routines, right? What I might call a reset. Someone might call them something else, but really it's how do I use that 15 or 20 seconds in between pitches, right? So that I know, okay, whatever just happened, whether it was a good or bad result, so to speak, let it go, right? Take a deep breath, refocus myself, and then really commit to what I'm doing on the next pitch, win the next pitch, right? An 0 for 0 mentality is something I'm working on with a high school kid now, right? Everybody relates to something different, but really getting them into that mindset, but also having them, and we talked about this before we hit record, but having them practice some of that stuff, right? It's hard to practice some of these mental tools, training tools in a preseason because doesn't feel like it's necessary. But that's where you challenge yourself, right? To say, hey, we go from, sort of really, really like high level training to live at bats, say for instance, or scrimmages. You want to be applying the stuff we're working on now in January and February in those more competitive environments. So we build up to how do I get a real good handle on my tools? And then I have to commit, right? Commitment is a big word for me. Let it go, man. Just go play. Because if you're thinking about what you need to do to execute the way your body moves in a game, you're probably screwed, right? So it's hard. It really is hard. Sometimes they need that concrete evidence from a game to then reflect and then adjust. But, that's where I'm trying to get them into that mindset of, hey, let's practice this stuff. Let's have a plan and then let's go execute the plan. And if it doesn't happen when you get onto the field in a game, let's revisit and refine. It's not the end of the world. We got to just keep working on getting better.
Trevor and I, and we talked about this before we recorded as well, but, we always talk about how so many guys, they get obsessed with their numbers and their stats are everything to them. Do you have conversations with them about redefining success and are there any tools that you can give them to be like, hey, we got to get away from that? And as you mentioned, like focus on the between pitch stuff and your process. And how do you go about strategizing that for guys? Because that can be hard to kind of go away for a player where like if they've always looked at their batting average, now I can't anymore.
Yeah. So redefining success is a great point, Dan. Like for me, what I've come to believe, and this is I've developed over time. I think I always believed it, but I didn't really have the words to put around it. I think that real sustainable confidence comes in identity, right? Also a word that we sort of kicked around a little bit before we hit record. Knowing who I am and what I want to do before I do it is the most important thing, right? If I go to the plate and I maintain my composure and I execute my routines and I barrel up a ball and I hit it right at the shortstop or the center fielder, being able to go, hey, I did everything that I wanted to do, right? I executed my plan. I stayed relaxed and I drove the ball back up the middle and it just went to somebody. I'm good with that. Right now, that's a process that takes time, right? So I don't know if I shared this with Trevor the first time, but I can't remember since it was so long ago. One of my favorite things to tell a young guy is, when did you start playing baseball? And they'll say, I'm 4 or 5 years old, right? You guys could probably relate to this, right? Did you play T-ball? Most kids did. I didn't, but most kids did. What happened in T-ball when you got to the plate? You got your little helmet wobbling and you got your big bat and whatever, and you hit the ball off the tee and it goes like this, blip, 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 3 inches. And you get to first base and everybody goes, yay, that was so wonderful. What was wonderful about it? Nothing. You learn to respond to that feedback. Like if I get onto first base, I'm good. And if I don't get on the first base, everybody goes, oh, and they groan, oh, it was, so like getting them out of that mindset of, hey, you don't have to get on base. You don't have to get a hit. You don't have to get a double to feel good about what you did. You got to know what's important and then go do it. Because if you know who you are and you go do it and the result doesn't match up, you're still going to be steady. right? You're still going to be rooted versus, oh, I only feel good when I do well. Now, if I don't do well, I feel bad about myself. But then if I do well, right? And I think I've seen some things about this and I've wrote about this and thought about it myself, which is guys are real hot. They actually tend to crater into slumps because they think it's going to be great. It's going to keep being great. Or I need to put pressure on myself for it to keep going versus, hey, that was great. I'm 5 for my first 10. But what about this at bat? Right. What do I want to do on this at bat? I want to do A, B, and C. If I do A, B, and C, that's in my control. It was success. So to go back to the original question, absolutely. Redefining success is we're doing all the time. And it's a process over time because of the way baseball goes, the way we're coached, the way we're reinforced over time. So you got to break those patterns, and that can take years with some guys.
I love that T-ball example. Like, even just like you can hear the audible groan in the crowd with the kid. You don't even think about how that still impacts a kid once he gets to high school baseball. That's amazing. And I had never pulled back that thread to that extent, which is awesome. And you just taught me something there that I'm definitely going to use in the near future. You mentioned in passing there, and I think this is a really good part of with the redefining successes. How do they handle going 5 for 10 or being 7 for 10 or being on a heater? How important is levelness in this of like not also getting too high? Because again, we know in baseball, even when we get too high, there's the inevitable slope that's going to crash us to the ground. And if we aren't prepared for at least that's coming in the future, that's going to hurt even more on the mental side.
Yeah, I think, yes, I agree. Right. And I think in a perfect world, as a mental performance coach, certainly I would have a player apply these, resets and tools that they use on a pitch by pitch or an at bat by at bat basis, because the result's gone. Whatever the result was, it was a good result. I'm 5 for 10. That's over. Now, what am I going to do right now? That's where compete happens, right? Compete happens in the present moment. So if I can narrow down my focus to compete on this pitch, whatever it looks like, regardless of circumstance or regardless of what came before or after, now I'm going to give myself the best chance to succeed. That's really hard with success, right? Guys on a heater, right? And they're just riding it. And the number one questions I'll ask a kid is, when you're going well, what are you doing? And they're like, I'm not thinking. Okay, great. However, that's how common is that? Not very common, right? We go on a heater 5 for 10, but for the next 90 at bats, we're thinking about something even when we're good. So you got to be ready for that, right? But I think it's hard to train them to get into that mindset of no matter what happens, good or bad, I want you to do the same thing. It's usually when it's bad, I do it. When it's good, I don't do anything until bad happens. And then when bad happens, they want to fix it. Which that's human nature, and it's fine. That's how they get motivated. I'm trying to angle them towards, hey, let's do it all the time. But listen, if they do it only when things are going poorly and then things are going well and then they go back off the cliff they go down the slope. Well, at least then now I have some concrete sort of evidence to say, hey, if you would have focused on staying present, 0 for 0 mentality when you were going good, it might have lasted longer, right? Now they can connect the dots and say, okay, I get it. Versus, oh, why do I have to do this when I'm going good? I'm just going good. I'm going to ride it. And I think that's probably the biggest misconception for young players, that they don't have to do anything when things are going well versus, hey, the process is the process regardless of the result.
I love that you keep mentioning like the pre-pitch or pre-pitch routine is what I would refer to it as. And I think that's so important for people. And it's sometimes hard to get guys to buy into it. Could you give us an example? I know everyone probably has different ones, but can you give us an example of one or two that you know of for guys that you think are pretty successful that help guys kind of refocus or recenter in between each pitch?
The best one I could give you is probably the highest level guy I've ever worked with in my life. And I got a handoff. Like I don't know where he's at now. We haven't talked in a while, but he was in the Giants system and then he went into another system. And I got him when he just had gotten drafted. And they had a really good mental skills coach there who I actually happen to know a little bit. And they kind of gave him this idea of thinking about his sort of pre-pitch as a funnel, right? So it's kind of like the gold standard for what I show my guys, right? He's like, every single pitch, I want to be funneling out the nonsense, right? Stuff I can't do anything about. So it was like a 4-level sort of cue that he used in 20 seconds, while you got a pitch clock on you. All right, I'm going to flush the last pitch. no matter what it was, good, bad, or otherwise, flush it. Take a deep breath. Tell myself to attack, right? I'm 2-0. I can still attack because I can. It's up to me. I could be 3-0 in attack. It could be 3-1. It doesn't matter what the count is. I can always be attacking, even if situationally I've got to maybe do it in a different way. And now I'm ready to go. And once I tell myself I'm ready to go, now I'm going, right? And to go back to what we started with, like we were talking about doing that in catch play and flat ground and bullpens and in the bullpen before again, right? Like just this sort of maniacal sort of consistency in every single pitch. I'm funneling out the non-controllable stuff and I'm really dialing it into relax, let go, relax, get into an attack mindset and let it rip, right? And if I did that on every single pitch, I'm good. He was a high-level guy. He played at a high level in college. He was a high draft pick, really smart, and he wasn't like uber talented in the grand scheme of things, and that he had to really work to get himself to that place. So I think he had that blue collar mindset of, hey, like I got to really be like mentally strong to get myself to the next level, right? But like taking that and trying to give it to other kids and say like you need to do this all the time. It's not going to be a perfect success rate, but if you're not thinking about every pitch, like where you want to be when that ball leaves your hands with intent, you're going to get left behind. You're going to get caught up in the emotion of, that one spun out. Oh, all right. Now I got to throw a strike. And now it's 2-0. And then you see the body language go, and then the next thing you know, it's 3-0. And then, and like, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's reactions. It's true, right? Oh, roll their eyes. And like, and the coach sees it and they're like, oh, here we go. Right. Like just focus on the next pitch. Know what you want to do. And that's one of my biggest, we haven't really talked about this. It's interesting. We could get into this if you want to, but like my biggest challenge is I'm not with them, right? Like I'm not on staff like you guys are on staff, right? The ability to do that on a daily basis and see a kid, hey, what's up, Johnny? Put your arm around. How you doing? All right. Hey, how's that going? Or I just saw you out there in your bullpen. Like, did you do this? I don't have that. I'm only getting one side of the story. So for the coaches who are in those situations who see the kid every day, that's a huge advantage to be able to be like, hey, are you using your pre-pitch routine? Did you do it? Right? Yeah. Let's work on that today in your bullpen, not just let's work on, breaking off sliders. So it's really, to me, it's really important because if they have command of that, then they can get through anything, even if the results are bad in that particular outing.